Hi, welcome back to Manufacturing Roundtable Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Ciampoli. Today I'm joined by Max, a senior engineer here at ECIC. Max has been an instrumental partner in driving continuous improvement across multiple client projects, bringing a practical lens to everything from facility assessments to continuous improvement strategies and lean implementation. His background in mechanical systems and day-to-day problem solving makes him a steady force on the ground when manufacturers are trying to make real change. I hope you find this conversation useful. Let's jump in. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have Massimo Giliberti, who we call Max here at ECIC, joining us to talk about his perspective on the shop floor for continuous improvement and the speed bumps to get there. So, Max, thank you for joining us. Happy Monday.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Happy Monday. It's a good weekend, right?
Good luck fighting that alternate side street parking this morning.
Yeah. For all those, I live in New York City, so alternate side parking is a thing.
So, Max, we want to get into some of the conversation on lean improvements and on the ground experience. From your perspective as a senior engineer, what's the biggest disconnect between companies' plans and the actual execution of lean on the shop floor?
That's a good question. I think the biggest disconnect is specifically with management. I think the folks on the floor, the folks that have their hands in the work that are actually touching the product day in and day out, they are actually probably one of the easier boxes to check to make that change. I think management sometimes doesn't know what's going to be required on how they can support a lean initiative. They don't know sometimes that they have to, or what's entailed in supporting their workforce, in how they can change, how their role has to change, how they have to switch from to more of a coach rather than a telling position, right? Where they say, "Hey, look, this is the task that has to be done," versus act more like a salesperson. Maybe, pitch the idea, see how it sticks, type of thing. So the management role, I feel like, is the most overlooked. The evolution of the management role.
Yeah, I can certainly agree with that. And with all those resistances and lack of alignments, what do you think? What does continuous improvement look like when you're hands on with the machines, the layout of the plant, and the systems that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, as you are full aware, right? When you go into different shops, there's kind of a different vibe in different shops. Um, Less senior lean shops. There is this kind of unsaid rule of don't touch anything, leave it alone, do your work, don't question anything, just don't just do as you're told. Period. End of story. More senior lean shops, folks that are touching the machines day in and day out, they're encouraged to ask questions and question everything. Is this tool supposed to be here? Is it a good idea to have it here? Would it make sense to have a different tool? Should we have two tools? All these questions, right? And then also asking the questions is kind of the first part. That's kind of like having curiosity about the work that you do. Then the second part would be asking, having have a little powwow with your team and your managers. Say, hey, look, this is a little bit uncomfortable. No resistance towards the problem. Just like, hey, let's all talk about this problem and come up with a possible alternative to what this problem might be. So it's almost this welcoming of problems rather than this resistance, this pushing back against problems.
Yeah, the we don't have a problem. It's just something we deal with. That's part of the business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as a consultant, I'm sure you feel this sometimes, right? When you walk into a place, you have to hunt for the exact thing to ask, to have people kind of start, like, plant the seed rather than throw the bomb, type of thing.
Yeah, the complaint that they're talking about is not the root cause. It's just a symptom of a series of things that aren't happening. I was just experiencing this last week at a candy manufacturer, and when we were doing root cause analysis, we restructured all the questions that we put on the board when we reviewed them because it was a symptom and it wasn't structured in the right way. We weren't actually talking about the thing on the board. We were talking about some underlying elements that lead to this, not this is our problem.
Right. Exactly. It's how do we ask these questions to engage everyone, that's every stakeholder in the process, to really bring a different perspective, because then we're able to fully see this whole process from all the different angles, and that's how you really truly implement lean.
Yeah, sometimes you got to break it loose. Have there been any moments where engineering decisions or changes on the shop floor have directly and instantly unblocked some operational bottlenecks or process bottlenecks in an organization you were working with?
I think these typically come about during a value stream mapping exercise. I think so. The value stream mapping exercise, for those who don't know what that is, it's this exercise that you do with a cross-functional team, and we're walking through the whole value stream of how a product is made, and that starts from all the way from sales all the way through delivery and even servicing. So through that exercise, I'd say 95% of the time, maybe more, maybe 99% of the time, every single person who's involved in that exercise, you can see this instance where their eyes kind of go wide open, like, whoa, we do all this? And it's this wide open, like, there's so much dysfunction in this process. But this wide open kind of, oh my gosh, we do this. And literally, as soon as we do the value stream mapping exercise, change happens without even having to create change or project charters or anything like that. Just sheer visibility of what the process actually includes. I always love to give this example. I mean, sometimes more than once this has happened where I'm mapping an exercise, and we're in the office. This is before his to shop floor, and the first person in the process, or second or third person, they make like 6 copies of a piece of paper. And then later on in the process, 10 people later, someone's ripping up 4 of the 6 pieces of paper. Like, literally, they're like, I don't know why I get 6, and they rip it up. And throughout the process, through the mapping process, everyone's like, you're doing what? You're ripping up the 4 pieces, and you're doing what? You're making 6 copies? Like, why don't we just make 1 copy?
Yeah, I've seen some very similar odd things like a customer service agent doing financial analysis on a customer's balance sheet and holding up orders for several days. And I'm like, where did you get the password to get this info? Oh, so and so who used to work here gave it to me. And I'm like, okay, we need to fix this now before the end of this event. Thank you for doing due diligence, but we have a department in finance that assesses the balances due and credit holds for the customer, not customer service.
Yeah, all too often during the value stream mapping exercise, you see all these little intricacies that kind of show up, and surprises of, hey, the business is operating, it's working, and it's working fairly smoothly. But there are all these inefficiencies. We, like in the lean world, and you know the acronym downtime, right? So we're hunting for all those types of wastes in the process, and there are so many.
Usually, the bigger the organization, the more waste that you find.
Right. And again, there's reasons for some of these processes getting implemented at some point in time. But as you evolve, as you grow, these processes, they become the dead weight in the organization.
Especially ISO companies. They'll get a failure or a non-conformance from a client, and then they'll implement the whole process or another check sheet without really looking at what they already do to add it to it. They'll add a whole separate form just to deal with this corrective action and to send back the scar. And here we go. Here's what we did, and we retrain the operator. I'm like, well, why did you do this? Well, we needed to resolve the issue, but now you're implementing waste. No, we fixed the issue. You created more waste. We can do this in a different area that we discovered. You can do it here and you can verify what was supposed to be done the first time, not add another step. Yeah, but we needed to do this. And they kind of forget that by adding a step, you're not exactly helping the customer if you could do it a more effective way that doesn't create extra work for you.
Absolutely. Food manufacturing has the same exact issue, right? They find some kind of hole, some kind of health issue, whatever it is, and they just patch it, patch, and then they're doing all sorts of crazy process work instead of just fixing the core issue. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Max, how do you balance engineering priorities or efficiency with the feedback that you get when you find these opportunities? This is a great idea, and you see this waste. How do you balance engineering priorities with operator feedback on or lean suggestions? You find this waste, you say, "Oh my gosh, how do we stop this?" And I have quite a bit of experience of fixing problems, but there's usually a bit of resistance. Oh no, we can't do that; it won't work. How do you balance those two things?
It's a really good question, and I think this is what more senior lean folks consider. I think it truly depends on the seniority of the organization. How how lean is this organization? How experienced are they in the lean world? So an organization that hasn't done anything lean, and a lot of these lean tools kind of pop up straight away. Sometimes you have this monster opportunity that is gonna hit the books. It's amazing. We should definitely tackle it, right? But it might be a little bit complicated to tackle. It might maybe ruffle some feathers. So in an organization where they haven't done lean, they haven't done much process improvement or continuous process improvement, I'd say let's go for an easy one first. Let's look for a team that's they're somehow resonating, right? There's always a pocket of folks in an organization that just like they just jive together. Um, let's hunt for that pocket, and then let's look for an easy win there. Let's see if we can get some momentum. Let's build some momentum. It's a little bit of a PR play. How can we make folks um, like the idea of lean in the organization? How do we kind of spread this idea that lean is a thing that we like? We want that guy Max or Eric to come back and help us more.
Yes, change is good. Don't be afraid. It'll get easier.
Yeah, exactly. Like, wow, that thing we've been complaining about for 5 years. It's like we can actually address it. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Right.
And it's not as big as you thought it was.
Bingo. That's exactly it, right? Because the idea of change, that monster, that resistance, that's what really is gonna push back on any kind of initiative. So that's what I look for on more naive or green lean teams. I kind of hunt for an easy win to build some momentum. On more senior teams, the ones that are comfortable with asking the tough questions, it's different because the team is kind of they know that this is kind of the thing that we do here. We ask hard questions. We put problems on the table without blame, and we kind of tear it apart. We kind of massage it. We look for different solutions and things like that. So the people that are showing up to troubleshoot a problem, they're more open to engage rather than the people that are showing up on a less lean organization. They might be more resistant. Heck, the culture might be specifically not allowing them to speak up. Like if they speak up, they might get in trouble. So that's these are all the unsaid rules of lean. This is the soft skills part of lean that less senior lean organizations aren't really aware of.
Yeah, we can't talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's the managers. Sometimes the managers have to learn to say, hey, yeah, let's talk about the things that are uncomfortable, right? Sometimes it's maybe the managers are on board, but the people are just used to this culture of like we don't talk about things, and it's sometimes it feels like pulling teeth at a problem that's maybe a little bit of an easy problem. So yeah, so
It can be. It can be. You can get there from here if you just look at it and talk about it for 10 minutes. We can figure out where to start and the repair process.
exactly.
Have you seen any great improvement ideas fail miserably for lack of adoption or support?
Yeah, I think this bleeds right into exactly this topic, right? Um, Unfortunately, too many to count. I think um, it's where is the team? Let me think of an example here. Um,
Bag extrusion, they weren't ready to lots of good ideas, ways to fix it, support from the floor, but not from management.
um, Worked with a couple of companies actually in bag extrusion. Um, it's it's a fairly automated process, but the trouble is that when something goes wrong, the whole line kind of shuts down, and it's a very expensive line to keep running. You kind of have to maintain. There's this big bubble that you have to maintain, and if that bubble breaks, then all hell breaks loose. Or sometimes the bubble's okay, and you get bags and bags and bags just kind of sitting on the floor. It's just this overwhelming mess, right?
Yeah, the materials discharge process.
Exactly, exactly. So in the couple of businesses that I've been to that do bag extrusion, some of them utilize it because a lot of this technology isn't necessarily cutting edge. This is something that's been around for a while, so they have some older equipment. And unfortunately, with older equipment, you really need to be on top of it. You need to be on top of your maintenance and your preventative maintenance, and kind of hunt for issues before they become issues. You really have to embrace total productive maintenance, which is like getting your operators to be in tune with the equipment. Um, I found that in that industry of bag extrusion, I found that operators are actually quite in touch with their equipment because they're sitting there day in and day out. They know what works, what doesn't work. And in fact, some of the places that I've been to, like literally, you'll see uh, box tape guardrails and all sorts of crazy stuff just to like try to literally duct tape the process together. um, and so what was needed to kind of more streamline this process, so you could see there's this creativity on the shop floor of people actually trying their hardest to try to keep this thing together. The support from management was kind of missing there. um, we need to kind of pour into this idea of TPM. We need to more energize and enable our folks to the operators to understand how this equipment works, to understand what's that squealing sound, and that's no good or good, or this motor should be running at this type of temperature, and a hotter motor is no good. And to kind of enable and trust the folks, the operators, um, train them and trust them to send that message of, hey, there's something going wrong with this piece of equipment. Let's send that message up the flagpole.
Yes,
So
some of that middle management support is what spurred our idea to create the Lean Leadership Roundtable. Is firing up the middle managers to support everyone beneath them, so that they can rapidly transform as an organization into a lean organization and become efficient and effective and highly responsive to customers' needs.
exactly, exactly, and there's also this really interesting bit with many of the organizations I attend. The middle management, they they're so used to kind of putting out fires, um, and that their world most of the day, maybe 95% of the day, is putting out fires. And the question that I like to ask is, this all seems, if we start doing a root cause analysis, this all seems like it kind of triggers from one core issue, one core cause. Um, could we maybe address this cause? And sometimes the feedback I get is that's not going to happen, or I tried that already, right? And so there was a little bit of coaching that I've done, that I think we've both done. With like, let's, maybe it's the messaging, maybe it's the way this request was brought up to upper management, right? It's just upper management sees things differently, and it's kind of by design, right? Upper management's looking at things more holistically, they're looking at things more financially. um, so making this presentation to better speak the upper management language, right? Because often middle management and operators speak a very similar language, right? They speak in output and widgets, right? They have they speak that shop talk. Upper management speaks a little bit of a different language. Yeah.
I have a sideshow presentation that I do throughout a lot of the lean trainings when I hear a lot of complaints about, yeah, we ask for things, we don't get support. And I'm like, how did you ask for it? And I call it the how to get what you want through creative means kind of training subsect of whatever we're focusing on. Is you need to learn how to talk to your boss and upper management and formulate your request in a manner that will get you what you need for the organization to thrive. A complaint is not a request, and that's what management here. Oh yeah, okay, you need new machines. We're not getting all new machines. It's not going to happen. There is a lot of reasons why that's not going to happen. However, specific elements that are critical to the operation of the line, we can get those addressed if we formulate the request properly, not just complain every day.
That's right. That's right. We often the middle managers and the folks on the shop floor, they talk about, oh, we can get, if we didn't have this problem, then life will be easier. Like that's let's see if we can refine this pitch a bit, right?
What are the dollar signs? What are the dollar signs on that easier? How much scrap gets reduced? How much productivity goes up? Show me the money, as Jerry Maguire said. If you can show the management the money on where you want to spend it, then you can get it.
Exactly. And a lot of the secret side that people don't quite see is like, okay, look, we save all this problem and all this stuff, but now we just opened up this window where now we could do more production, right? We have a growing backlog, but now if you somehow increase the production window another 20%, because now we're not fighting 20% of 20% of the day on fighting this machine. We just increased now our production window 20%. Now we have more widgets that we can output.
Now you got the dollar signs.
Now you have your dollar signs, right? Now, if I can increase my widget output 20%, almost anything you can get funding for. Yeah.
Money in the bank right there. So, Max, can you walk us through a recent project where you made those changes and it led to a measurable improvement?
So yeah, I've got a really good example. Actually, a current client, but this is all too often kind of the same story across multiple clients. But it's this whole idea of, hey, we want change. Okay, we want change. We want more output. Okay, great. Then I asked the question of, hey, what are the KPIs? What are you guys measuring? And then the blank faces, like, so in a recent client, I asked this question and I got blank faces. And then somebody has like a kind of a twinkle in their eye, like, oh, I think I've seen something somewhere. Like, okay, what have you seen? Let's see it. Let's check it out. And they'll pull something up. And it has a very, like, it has one tiny perspective on the KPI, very skewed. Okay, so we start asking questions, start turning over rocks. We find out that on the KPI that they wanted to change, there were 4 or 5 different people reporting on KPIs, but none of them were reporting to the folks on the floor. None of them were reporting to any of the group leaders. This industry was actually in pharmaceuticals. None of them were reporting to group leaders. They weren't reporting to operators. They weren't reporting to anyone that was actually doing the work. And then even that, it seemed like even supervisors only had a portion of the reporting. They didn't even get the whole picture either. So the first question so that was the first pass was, okay, let's see if we can get these KPIs a little bit more visible. Then the next question is we kind of started to dive into what the KPIs look like. And there were no KPIs. So very specifically, like, hey, we want to improve our output. We want to improve our downtime and our output. So the very first question I asked is, okay, how do we do that? Do we have what our main issues are? Have we built out a Pareto? And so a Pareto is, hey, how do we, what are the 20% of our problems that are causing 80% of our issues? So that answer was not existent. we didn't have any kind of visibility in that. So we built out a whole system on how do we gather this information. We used their existing software infrastructure. They had everything all built out, which was amazing. We just needed to add a couple of fields, a couple of different options, and so they've built this out. Instantly, we calculated that within 2 weeks they would have enough information across the whole company to have an idea. They would have this Pareto built out of what the major issues are. In a month and a half, they would have enough information per line to very specifically say, hey, this line suffers quite dramatically from this issue. Throughout that process, though, what was very interesting is operators said, oh, we spend most of our time waiting for information. And management was kind of floored by this. They're like, no, that's no way this is an issue. So within operators and management, everyone was on a different page. So this whole project, first off, is going to align the team, right? We're going to find the numbers. We have the numbers that will show the truth. We'll see how much time, how many widgets have been wasted because we've been waiting for information, right? Or what is the number one mover, right? So we're expecting returns over $1 million a year just on this tiny little project that literally was over the course of a few days, and a couple additional fields in existing software. So really excited for that implementation. So just kind of getting the info, asking the right questions, and displaying our data in a way that everyone can understand, and making the data available to the folks that actually can make the change.
That's fantastic. I've seen something very similar, even in a Fortune 100 company. I did my Gemba walk and said, yeah, you have an information problem, and ownership literally exploded. Like, we have our own custom ERP system. This can't be the case. I'm like, no, I just watched it happen. They're gaming the system so that they can get the numbers they need so that they can make decisions. The system has a lack of information and a lack of communication. I've never gotten this level of resistance and almost verbal aggression, and how this isn't true. How an organization that built their own information system can have such a gap in the availability and accuracy of information. And one of their major symptoms was they were always running out of materials every day, all day, without fail, ordering millions of dollars a month of materials and never having what they need. I said, it's because everything is reactive, not planning. You don't have an ERP system. You have an ERR. You're recovering constantly. No, this can't be true. I'm like, I just watched it happen. And they showed me how they game the system to manipulate it to get the information they need. And it was quite impressive of how they game the system. I asked them, like, why hasn't this been communicated? And they gave me that kind of, we've been down this road before, Eric. It doesn't go where you want it to go. And I'm like, oof, okay. So I had that meeting with leadership, and they ended up hiring another consulting firm that gave them promises that weren't realistic, and it didn't work out well.
Absolutely.
What's one piece of advice, Max, that you could give engineers and shop managers that are working in these plants that have the want and desire to focus their organization towards becoming a lean company?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to kind of. It feels like this is the thread that's gone through this entire chat, right? I'm gonna go back to this. Have more compassion. Have compassion for your operators. Have compassion for the people in your organization. One of the points in change and change management that I really like to focus on is this idea that we all kind of have, every human on this planet has their own predicaments. Some folks are married, some are not. Some have kids, some are not. Some have newborns and they only get 2 hours of sleep, and some don't, right? So we all have different upbringings, different cultures, and that's kind of what makes the world so special. That's kind of the horsepower in an organization. When you have that diversity in an organization, all these different people can see a problem in different ways. And so you can kind of poke holes and really make a process super robust if you have that diversity. But what's required is to see that, instead of seeing that as a problem, which I've seen time and time again, celebrate that. Celebrate the fact that you have this diversity. Celebrate the fact that people see things from different ways, right? And sometimes you have this problem that seems super clear, super obvious, right? And you go to someone and you experience resistance to a change. Understand that they're seeing it from a different world altogether. So, little bit of I guess my single bit of advice would be, try to add a little bit more compassion to your change management. Try to understand that these people, they see things in a different way. So sometimes we need to explain something, and most of the time they're onto something. They see something that you don't see, and that's because they're literally on the floor day in and day out working with the materials. They have a different insight, to an engineer or to a manager, because they know kind of the tips and tricks to the work they do.
The invisible hand.
Yes, yes, exactly. So yeah, so that would be my little bit of advice. That would go a really long way in the lean world.
Yeah, I can agree with that 3,000%. So if there's one thing that you see that middle management and leaders misunderstand about the role of improvement in their organization, and even the participation value of a facilitator such as ourselves, what do you think that misunderstanding would be?
Yeah. You mentioned the invisible hand just now. Um, there's this Yeah, there is this invisible hand in all organizations, really in any kind of group that humans are together. There are these informal and formal leaders. There's just kind of this, if someone were to say a sentence, and everyone can kind of think of this scenario, right? If I were to say something versus if that guy over there or that gal over there said that same exact sentence, right? It would land completely different. So I would think about, what power would somebody who's maybe not in the day-to-day operations, saying that one sentence, what kind of power they might have with their group. Typically, I go into an organization. I'm a stranger. I don't know your process, right? And the very first thing is, hey, let's talk about your process, and get loads of great information, right? And me, the stranger, kind of saying the same thing that maybe other folks have been saying, kind of lands differently. It's sometimes it's more received, sometimes it's less, but most of the time I see that it's more received. People are more open to it because there's less baggage to our relationship, right? We're brand new. You don't know who I am, type of thing, right? So we're brand new, so it's not, I'm not saying it because I somehow have an ulterior motive, right? You don't know who I am. I'm just talking. I come in because I just care about the process. I care about making your life easier. And let's have a quick cool conversation about it. No, no fireworks needed. Let's just chat.
Yeah, no agenda. Let's just get to the truth.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so having that kind of, that fresh set of eyes, that fresh person saying sometimes the same thing that everyone has been saying, has some serious weight to it.
Absolutely. Well, Max, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to hear from someone like yourself who's living in the trenches on the front line of lean and lean transformation in manufacturing organizations throughout the tri state area of New York City. I invite all our listeners to follow our podcast on YouTube and on Spotify, and check our website out for content being updated on a regular basis with case studies and things to know about lean. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.